in here. In the previous video, we created a class. However, we missed a really important piece, a very common piece of functionality called a constructor. We didn't miss it, I just waited to introduce it into this video. So if we look at how we instantiated a new triangle class instance with our current setup, right, I had to call new triangle, that's not going to change, save that to a variable, but then I had to manually give it a value for A, manually give it a value for B, in order to get my getArea method to work, which relies on A and B. Right now, we just have methods in here. We don't have an easy way to create a triangle with our sides already set, right? It would be nice if I could do, make me a new triangle with A set to 3 and B set to 4. And there is a way of doing that, which is by adding a particular named method called constructor. It has to be called a constructor, and this constructor method will automatically be called anytime we make a new instance of triangle or any other class that has a constructor. JavaScript automatically calls it. So it does have to be named exactly constructor. Inside of our constructor method, we can then initialize properties on the object. So in this case, my constructor is going to be expecting an A and a B value, and it's going to assign the value of A to this.A. It will assign the value of B to this.B. Remember, this doesn't refer to the class. This refers to the instance of the class, the particular triangle instance. So let's add a constructor to our triangle. These are conventional at the top of the file. Constructor, we'll do A and B. These names don't matter whatsoever. Of course, they should be meaningful, but JavaScript doesn't care. It's just any parameter. And then I'll take the value that was passed in first and assign that to this.A. The value that was assigned or passed in second will be assigned to this.B. Now, when I create a new triangle, all I have to do is pass in two numbers to the parentheses after triangle. Let's try it. If I do new triangle and I pass through 5 and 12, save this to a variable called try. If we look at try, T-R-I, it is a triangle instance that has A set to 5 and B set to 12. So whatever was passed in first, in this case 5, will be set to A. Whatever is passed in second, in this case 12, will be set to this.B. And just remember, this refers to the particular object generated from this class. So if I make a new triangle, const try2, these names are getting quite repetitive, will be a new triangle. I'll just pick random numbers that don't actually equate to a right triangle as far as I know, or a nice right triangle. It doesn't really matter. If we look at try2, A is set to 2 and B is set to 4. If we look at try, T-R-I, A was set to 5, B was set to 12. So this constructor is just a really nice feature in order to initialize properties. I just pass values in, and then I can assign them to this dot something. These names don't have to match. Often they will, but they really don't have to. And, maybe I want to call this side A and side B. That's fine. I just have to make sure that this is side A and this is side B. So this is just a regular old function. There's nothing all that fancy about it, except for the fact that the constructor is automatically called whenever we make a new instance. There are a couple things that we usually do in the constructor. You can do whatever you want, but the two main things are assigning properties, like we've already done here. This.A equals something, this.B equals something, and then validating your input data that is passed into the constructor. So here's a modified constructor for our triangle that makes sure that you provide numbers. Because right now I could make a new triangle where I pass through true and a string, save that to a variable. We'll call this bad try. Nobody cares. JavaScript doesn't complain, right? There's nothing in here saying that they have to be numbers. But as soon as I call getArea, it doesn't go well. So we can do basic validation, like what I'm doing right here. Just a bit of logic to see if A is negative. We don't want a negative length for a side of a triangle. Or if number.isFinite of A returns false, right? I'm negating it. Number.isFinite is just one of the ways in JavaScript to tell if a value is a finite number. Anyway, basically if it's invalid length or if it's not a number, we'll throw an error. And we do the same thing for B. So if I try and make a new triangle now, new triangle with 1 and 2, no problem whatsoever. But 1 and AS, I'd get an error, right? I threw an error in here, invalid B. If I pass through an array, I get an error. So those are the sort of things that are common to do in the constructor. Initialize your actual properties on the instance of the class, and often beforehand, do some basic data validation. Also note that constructor functions always just return undefined. There's no point in trying to return something from a constructor because we're never actually explicitly calling constructor ourselves. You don't want to do something like this, triangle.constructor, and try manually calling that. It's not going to work for you. And even if it did work for you, it's a terrible habit or terrible pattern. It is automatically called for us, as we know by now, when I create a new triangle using the new keyword followed by my class name, followed by parentheses. Any values I pass in here will be passed to the constructor automatically. And now we can see a new object. A is set to 2,